One of the things that I have been focused on is like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be 70 soon, in a couple of
Yeah.
years. Do I have enough time left to get all the things done that I want to do? What's your advice about that? What kinds of discussions did you have with people around the whole issue of time?
Yeah, well, I had one person that had a great saying that instead of having a bucket list, they had an anti-bucket list, which were the things that they no longer felt they had to do or needed to do. So, I think when we're younger, we have a little bit of FOMO, fear of missing out, and we want to do everything. And I think this particular person that I interviewed talked about, I don't need to do those things anymore. I don't need to prove myself to anyone anymore. I really can say no to things that I don't want to do and be very judicious with their time in terms of what they do spend it on. And we do have less time in front of us than behind us. And so how do we learn how to really manage that, I think, in the best way so that we do the things we love instead of doing the things that we feel like we have to do?
Hi, I'm Lennis Woods Mullins, and I love to help women to vibe, to be more vibrant, intuitive, beautiful, and empowered in midlife. So come on, let's vibe.
As I get closer and closer to 70, which is like 2 years from where I am now. So I don't know when you're going to be listening to this, but if you're listening to this in 2025, I'm just a couple months away from 68. So I'm preparing myself for 70 if I should be so blessed to live to 70. And when you have lived that long, you begin to start putting some things into perspective and taking a look at the conglomeration of experiences that you've had and how it's impacted you, and maybe what things you can do with the time that you have left, whether it's another 20 years, 30 years, whatever. I don't think I have another 70 years. I always talk about midlife. I think I'm way past midlife. But anyway, the whole idea of how well did you live your life? What kinds of things did you do that you're proud of, that you want to share with others? Well, I'm so happy today to have with us Sky Bergman, who is an award-winning filmmaker, photographer, and author, also a professor. She's done a documentary that's on PBS called Lives Well Lived. And also she wrote a book called Lives Well Lived, Generations. And what she's talking about is celebrating the wisdom and resilience of older adults and highlighting the importance of intergenerational connections. Sky, it's so wonderful to have you here on the V.I.B.E Living podcast today.
Oh, I'm just delighted to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So glad that we connected. Now, Sky and I connected in a different way. I happen to be signed to a gray hair modeling agency, and she participates or is involved with them as well. We both have gray hair, as you can see.
Yes.
For those of you who are looking at the YouTube version and not taking a look at the audio version. So that's how we met. And through the few months or so, I began to get a little bit more familiar with her work and the fact that she wrote this wonderful book. And I am so glad that she is gracing us with her presence. Sky, you got to tell me, what inspired you to write this book, Lives Well Lived, Generations? And how has the process of making the film and writing the book shaped your understanding of aging and intergenerational connections?
Yeah, that's a really good question and a big question. So I will kind of break it down from the beginning, which was when I started working on the film, I was looking at approaching 50, which I think that half century mark, especially for women, is a really big marker in time. And I'm 59. So just to, that was back when I was about 45. And I was just not seeing anything positive out there about aging. Everything that I saw were all the anti-aging creams you could use to look more, in quotes, youthful. Those things that were in TV and on movies were all the negative aspects of aging. That's changed in the 15 years since, but at that time, that was certainly not the case. And in my own family, I had this amazing role model of my grandmother who was turning 100, who was still working out at the gym. She didn't start working out until she was 80. So she proved to me that it's never too late to start something new, even working out at the gym. And I thought, I need to find more people like my grandmother who are living full and meaningful lives that can be my role model. Since I'm not seeing it out there, I need to create that pool of people that I can pull from for my own, like way of looking at life. And so I ended up spending 4 years interviewing 40 people that were 75 and above with a collective life experience of 3,000 years and put together a film. I didn't know I was doing a film when I started this project. It was such a personal project. And as I tell my students, the more personal, the more universal the message becomes. And it
Yeah.
has certainly struck a chord. And really, the book came about because I had so many people asking me, well, what are the things that you learned from all the 3,000 years of collective life experience? Can you distill it down and put it into a book so that we can read about it? And I know that people were taking furious notes when they were watching the film about their favorite quotes and whatever. So I decided, okay, I'm going to sit down and write a book. I'm dyslexic, so it's not easy for me to write, but I just felt so compelled by all the people that had reached out to me. And so I put together a book and really talked about my process of being a first-time filmmaker and ending up on PBS and what that was like, and the lessons that I learned along the way. And really, I think there were four key elements that I learned from all the people that I interviewed. The first was having a sense of purpose. And I think for many of us, that changes over our lifetime. And especially in that moment when maybe we retire from our day job. A lot of times when people ask you, what do you do? The first thing you say is your job and your profession. And when you don't have that anymore, you're kind of shifting what your sense of purpose is. And so I think all the people that I interviewed had a sense of purpose, whether it was getting up every morning to teach English as a second language, volunteering to do that, making mozzarellas for his daughter's deli. That was Lucky Louie's thing, that he was a pediatrician, but then when he retired, he started making mozzarella every morning. Whatever it is, there's got to be some reason that you want to get up every day and give back in some way. And I think the second thing was really about community, having a sense of community. It doesn't matter if it's family or friends, but feeling like you are part of something bigger than yourself and that you have people you can count on. And the third and fourth thing really go hand in hand, which is a sense of resilience and positivity. And those are really the things that I learned from doing the film and from writing the book and kind of distilling it down. It was quite a process.
I love the key points that you learned. And one of the things that I wanted to zero in on, because I think it's really as important, and that is the purpose. I work with women and have been working with women for 18 years over the age of 40. Their average age is between 45 and 55.
Right.
And this is an ongoing, reoccurring theme, discovering they're not quite sure what their purpose is. And perhaps part of the reason is that we play so many roles in our lives, and the roles that we play are not necessarily self-serving. Most of it is outer directed. So by the time we get to the point of, okay, what's my purpose for me? A lot of women have a tendency to draw a blank. So what did you learn as you were interviewing people about how people came to find what their purpose was if they thought perhaps they didn't have one?
That is a really good question. And I absolutely think you're right. Especially women, we tend to give so much of ourselves to other people that we forget about satisfying our own needs sometimes. It's like that oxygen mask story, put the oxygen mask on yourself first so you can take care of the person next to you, your child, whoever needs help. And I think we tend to do it in reverse many times in our lives. And I think as we get older, maybe that's a time that we have that we can explore that a little bit more of how do we take care of ourselves. And I think the other thing is changing the narrative so it's not selfish to be taking care of ourselves first. Actually, it's very selfless to be doing that because it allows you to do more and to take care of other people. And when we are run down and we are doing everything else for everyone else, we don't have that energy to be really present. So I think the people that I interviewed, how did they find their passion or their sense of purpose is really finding their passion. I guess, that's really what it's about, is finding what do they love doing? What makes them happy? What warms their heart when they're in the middle of doing it? And for many people, it is really about giving back in some way. So even though they're taking care of themselves, they're doing something that gives back in some way that brings them some joy. But it's doing something very purposefully and very authentically in terms of the things that they love doing. So, it doesn't really matter what it is, just finding that thing that sparks joy, that brings you joy in your life, and doing more of that, and finding ways to, I think, keep that consistent, not just doing one class in something and then deciding, no, I'm done, but really finding what is that thing that just you can't wait to get up to do every day? And it's different for every people. So there's not really like a defined way that I can say this is what everybody should do. Because I think there's a lot of self-discovery that needs to happen. And I think allowing yourself that time to find that self-discovery, to figure out what the things are that you like and don't like. I mean, that's part of it. Sometimes we are living our lives so quickly and so fully that we don't even have time to discover that. And a lot of times, yeah.
That's something else that just jumped out at me, and that's
Hmm.
time. Uh,
Yeah.
one of the things that I have been focused on is like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be 70 soon, in a couple of
Yeah.
years. Do I have enough time left to get all the things done that I want to do? What's your advice about that? What kinds of discussions did you have with people around the whole issue of time?
Yeah, well, I had one person that had a great, a great saying that instead of having a bucket list, they had an anti-bucket list, which were the things that they no longer felt they had to do or needed to do. So, I think when we're younger, we have a little bit of FOMO, fear of missing out, and we want to do everything. And I think this particular person that I interviewed talked about, I don't need to do these things anymore. I don't need to prove myself to anyone anymore. I really can say no to things that I don't want to do and be very judicious with their time in terms of what they do spend it on. And we do have less time in front of us than behind us. And so how do we learn how to really manage that, I think, in the best way so that we do the things we love instead of doing the things that we feel like we have to do? And it's hard to learn how to say no, but it's a very powerful word to say no to things that we know just don't feel right or they're just going to be a time suck for us.
Yeah, they always say all the time that no is a complete sentence. And they
Yes.
also say that no is something that we as women generally struggle with because part of our process is trying to figure out a way to do it. Because once again, leading with service and not necessarily leading with what might serve us better. But as you get older, you have an opportunity to kind of flip the script on that and begin to take a
Absolutely,
look
you
at,
do. I think that age gives us that opportunity to say no to things, and to say yes to things that might sound a little iffy and a little crazy, and doing something out of our comfort zone just to experience something different. I think that you should not let age be a determining factor of what you can and cannot do. I saw that, like I said, with my grandmother who started working out at the gym at 80, and she loved it. That was her social community. She felt better. She had a phrase, which I'm sure other people have, move it or lose it. But in her 60s, she wasn't ready to do that. And in her 80s, it was the right moment for her. So,
And it's never too late. I think about the great
yeah,
Ernestine Shepherd, who started working out at the age of 50 something, and she had a trigger. She had lost two loved ones to diabetes, and she decided that that was not going to be the way that she went up. And so
right.
she started working out and found out she had an affinity for it and ended up being like the number one bodybuilder woman in her age category. And she's well into
Right.
her 80s now and is still working out, still doing things. Those kinds of stories about, your mother, your grandmother, and Ernestine Shepherd are very encouraging. But tell me, what were some of the aha moments that you had or that you witnessed through writing the book when you were talking with the younger generation and the older generation? What were some of the really meaningful connections that you made?
Well, I think the aha moments were really reflecting back on all the years that I've been working on the film and this intergenerational project, and realizing that, right now we have such divides in our country, and we think about, divides around religion, around race, but there's also divides around age, and ageism is definitely a big ism that we don't talk about that much. And I think that was a big aha moment because I've been doing projects where we connect older adults and students. And of course, the thing that they learn at the end of their time together is that they realize they have far more in common than their differences, and really their only differences are age. And so the more that we can do to connect generations, to connect people, to bring people together, and I think on that one-on-one level, I think that's what's missing. We tend to stay very segregated in our own little groups, and to break those barriers down, I think then instead of it being us versus them, it's the we. And that was a real aha moment for me.
That is an aha moment. Absolutely. And you're absolutely right. One of the things that's going on in this country right now, no matter what side of the fence you sit on, I think we can all attest to the fact it's pretty stressful.
Yeah.
It's definitely causing a lot of anxiety because of all the uncertainty in the future. And it's an interesting time to be in at the age that we are in. So, taking a look at the frame of reference of writing the book, what kind of advice do you think you could give those women who are out here feeling a certain kind of way and wondering, how should they be encoding the world now as they're moving forward?
Yeah, that's another really good question. I think that, one of the things that we can all do is to get out of our isolated little bubble and to get out of our comfort zone and meet people of different ages, different races, different religions. And a number of ways that you can do that. Join, different organizations, volunteer, be part of a group that you feel passionate about, and learn from people of all different ages. One of the things that I did when I was in my mid 40s, like looking at that 50 and thinking, oh my God, I don't have enough women friends. And what can I do to bring more joy and more women into my life of all different ages, was I started doing a ladies potluck dinner that I do the first Monday of every month. I have people from the ages of 20 to 90 that come. And what that does for me is I reconnect it. I've formed my own tribe, and I'm informed by those people of all different ages, all different races, all different religions that come together once a month. So, do what you can to form that, I guess. You have to be a little bit proactive about that, I think. You can't just sit at home and be isolated. You really do have to kind of put yourself out there a little bit to make that happen.
I think that's a wonderful point, because as we get older, I've noticed that women in particular have a tendency to self-select out. They don't want to be a bother or a burden to anyone. They're thinking that everybody's so busy that no one has time to connect.
Right.
And everybody's thinking that, and nobody's connecting. And the reality is, I can tell you from working with a lot of women are sitting at home, getting a PhD in Netflix or Hulu, and
Yeah.
actually, it's a great idea to reach out to that friend that you haven't seen for a while. I know I've been guilty for different reasons. I am so involved in my business, and my business is all online, and I'm talking to people all the time. And it feels like I'm actually connecting with folks, but I had to be reminded when I was traveling. I just got through traveling for the last 6, 7 weeks, that I still needed to make sure that I have that human connection, and what a difference it is. I would be at airports, and this was really weird, but it's true. I would be in the airport, and this happened to me about 3 or 4 times while I was traveling. Somebody walked up to me, I know you from somewhere. And so I am trying to search my mind and think, okay, where could I have seen them? Whatever it is, I'm searching my mind and thinking, oh my gosh, the last time I was with people that I didn't know was 2 years ago or whatever. And they'll finally realize where they see me is on my social media, because it
Right.
seems so real, but it's not the same as actually having an interaction with someone.
Mhm.
And they do say it's not just a myth. It's true that when women gather and meet and spend time together, there's a hormone that is secreted more than at any other time. And that's when women spend time together. So if you want to look at it this way, it's life affirming. It's good for you to
Yes.
fight that urge to self-select out and to get out there. And when you think about the book that you've written and all the experiences you've had as a result of writing the book, what is it that you're hoping that the viewers of the movie and the readers of the book take away with them? What is it that you hope that they're learning?
Well, I think that if for the book and the movie, I think it's, the four lessons that I talked about. And really you see that very much in the film, because a lot of the people that were in the film went through World War II, and they went through times of hardship. And how did they face that with resilience and positivity, and hearing about their sense of purpose and how they reframed their life throughout their age. I think all of that when you see it and you hear the firsthand account, it really hits home. And so that's one thing that I think works really well about the film. And it's resonated with audiences because it's just got renewed on PBS for another 4 years. And I mean, it's just had a life of its own, which is amazing. And yeah, and then I think the book, distills some of that down. Sometimes it's people learn in different ways. And so for some people, reading might be a different way than watching a film to learn about that. And it distills down the essence of the film, and then my favorite quotes from each of the people that I interviewed in the film. And the second half of the book is really dedicated to connecting generations. So I interviewed 40 people around the globe that are doing really interesting work connecting generations, whether it's through something called Generations Over Dinner or Cycling Without Age, which started in Denmark, where they take a tricycle out and they have a younger person biking and two older people in the front, and they have these wonderful conversations. And that's worldwide now, or an intergenerational symphony or co-generational housing, just different ways that we can bring generations together. But I also wanted to go back to the women gathering, because I just in this past week, amazingly, saw a next door neighbor, somebody put out just a call, hey, ladies, I'm going to do this thing. And if you sort of similar to me, but they just put it out on Next Door Neighbor, like to whoever wants to show up, I'm going to do a craft day and potluck, please come. And then on another Facebook group, somebody put her name out and said, hey, I'm in my mid 40s and I'm looking for women friends. And these are the things that I like to do. And anyone that wants to join me, please, like, let's go for a hike. And I thought, how great is that? Putting yourself out there in that way. So, you're not isolated and you're not alone. And you create a space for people, for women to gather, for amazing things to happen. So it doesn't have to be something monumental. It can be something very small on a very local level that makes that happen.
It's interesting I've done this event 3 times where me and another lady from Southern California, I'm in the Northern California area. We came together and brought women together who are our age, and it was outside in my backyard on the tennis court. We had umbrellas and it was really nice. But one of the things that everybody loved about it was just the opportunity to get together. And it was amazing how many degrees of separation. It was like 2 degrees. And I didn't know her, it was just amazing. It was just getting together and talking and pouring into each other. But people are still asking me, when are you going to do another one? And talking to you, Sky, I said, okay, I'm definitely going to do another one because I use it. And I just think it's an opportunity for women to come together and celebrate each other. And I know your book isn't just focused on women, but since I talk about women, I'm kind of focusing on that. But for all of you who are listening, please go ahead and check out this wonderful series on PBS, Lives Well Lived, and also Sky's book. I have all the URLs that you need about Sky in the show page, a direct link to her book as well. And when does the Lives Well Lived air on PBS? Is it different times in different markets?
It's different times in different markets, but it's also on Amazon and iTunes and Canopy. So if you have a library card, pretty much you can see Lives Well Lived. And if you have a PBS membership, you can see it for free on PBS Passport as well.
Yes, PBS membership, everybody. Yes. It's going to be more important more than ever to be able to get alternative points of view and to get some really good information about culture, which is something that, I feel like we're beginning to let go of, that we need to grab back because it kind of defines who we are as individuals and as a people. Boy, Sky, thank you so much for being on the V.I.B.E Living podcast. It's been wonderful having you here today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This has been a blast.
Yeah, it's been great. And thank you to all of you who've been listening. I've been seeing your comments. Please continue to comment, like, and share, and subscribe to this podcast because that's what keeps us going. The podcast is doing well and is growing, and I would like to get to the top 5%. We're at the top 8% right now of podcasts globally. So let's get to the top 5. Share this podcast out and take a look at all the hundreds of podcasts that we have for the V.I.B.E Living podcast. I truly do believe that for women in particular, it's all about the vibe, being more vibrant, more intuitive, more beautiful, and empowered to live an active and great midlife and beyond. Have a fantastic day, everybody. And don't forget the vibe. Bye-bye, everybody. Thanks for listening to the V.I.B.E Living podcast. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment, and share this podcast. Have a fantastic day, and don't forget to vibe. Bye-bye, everybody.